be. So welcome to this afternoon's webinar, everybody. My name is Susan Harden with AGS, and this is the Work and SCC Grant Data Management webinar to learning how to leverage AGS Prime for WIPS compliant grant reporting. Cody, if you want to switch slides for me. So our presenters, our speakers, there's my information, that's who I am. I'm joined by my colleague, John Hawkins, also from AGS. Here's our information. And our guest speaker today, we are so excited. And thank you so much. Cody Tomblin is here, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Cody, a bit more. Just a little bit of housekeeping. This is a live presentation. So if you're here through your phone for any weird reason anymore, please don't put us on hold. Minimize your background noises as much as possible. We should have time for Q&A at the end. We will be monitoring chat if you'd like to chat questions in. And in the GoToTraining control panel, you should see this presentation available for download. So you can go ahead and grab that now if you'd like to. It will also be automatically emailed to you after the session, along with the recording for today's session. So thank you everybody for being here. Cody, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit more, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you to all of our attendees. As Susan said, my name is Cody Tomblin. I'm the director for a program called Ascend here at BridgeValley Community and Technical College. We are located in South Central West Virginia, servicing an 8-county region. Using SCC and work funds, we're seeking to transition our local and state economy away from coal dependency to more technology-driven industries. And AGS plays a significant part in that, ensuring that we stay compliant with all of our DOL and DOE reporting requirements. So, Susan, John, if you are ready, I will just get us started.
Sounds great. Thanks, Cody.
Okay, so I mentioned that we are a grant-funded program here at the college. Susan spoke to our Strengthening Community Colleges grant. We also have a work grant, a U.S. Department of Labor Scaling Apprenticeship grant, which actually just ended, and we are soon to have a U.S. Department of Energy IAC grant. That entails a lot of grant management, a lot of performance reporting. There are definitely similarities if you're familiar with DOL WIPS formatting and those Perl elements. There are definitely some similarities and overlap, but there are also some that are some differences across those projects. So jumping over to our challenges and needs, just expanding on that point, that we really needed to find a way to ensure that we were compliant across the board, ensuring that we're compliant with our DOL and DOE reporting requirements, those quarterly performance reports, the quarterly narrative reports, and also just institutionally, there are some things that maybe aren't required for federal grant reporting, but are hugely helpful for us as we're navigating those braided funds and those braided projects. So that is how we landed with AGS. We sought out a couple of demonstrations. We tried out a couple of internal approaches. Initially, we thought we could do everything that we needed just through the college's academic software, Ellucian Banner. And Banner is a tremendous, well-rounded system, but it is not set up to be a federal grant reporting system. So we first were pulling manual student-by-student information from Banner. What major are they in? What county do they live in? What funding have we provided them, if any? And taking all of that information and all of that really intricate in the weeds level data of um, the different codes that are required to be Pearl compliant. So taking something like they live in Kanawha County here in Charleston, what is the 3-digit number for that for us to report on it? Anyone who has gone through that understands how time consuming that is, and it is just not a good use of our time as we're juggling all of these initiatives that the college has, not really focusing in those areas, but allowing us to focus more in terms of our intentional and more frequent student support. AGS is a no-code development application. In layman's terms, if you're like me and not the most tech savvy, that essentially means that we were able to take our template for each of these reporting requirements, those DOL provided templates that feature all of the different Perl elements. We shared those with Susan and the AGS team, and they graciously, within, I want to say like a matter of a few days, had us a platform ready to go. Everything was pre-built in. I think I speak to this in depth a little bit more in a later slide, but everything that the user sees, so everyone here at the college that's involved with these projects, it looks like your standard, easy to use, easy to navigate website. So instead of it being a bunch of ones and zeros and nines, any interaction that we have, any service that we provide, it is just really straightforward, really just conveniently worded, for lack of a better description. We don't have to sit down and interpret all of these different, Perl element 1015 requires a 6 or a 9 here. What does that equate to for our participant? And doing that for the entire student population that we serve. Everything that the student sees and everything that the team sees is really straightforward, really easy to follow. We'll go through some of that in a bit. The implementation and our experience, again, we were able to send off those templates that our funders provided us. And at that point, it was sort of in the AGS team's hand. And within a really short turnaround, they had us these workspaces ready to go. Super fast response times. And again, user-friendly interface, real-time data tracking, and it really allowed us to be able to utilize our time to be more efficient in not just making sure that we're compliant with all of our funders' reporting requirements, but our goal with all of our funding is ultimately to help increase our retention rates here at the college, increase our graduation rates, which ultimately transitions students into the workforce. Our time is not really best served punching in a bunch of zeros and sixes and ones. Our time is best served with that one-on-one student interaction and making those connections with local community partners, local employer partners, to really do what the grants are funding us to do. And I think now we will switch over to our demo. Just bear with me. Okay, so for each funding source, if you are funded through multiple sources like we are, AGS will set you up with a workspace specific to that grant. So you get your login credentials. If you're an admin user, like I am overseeing the projects, then you will see everyone's information. That can be filtered down to where you can see assigned staff over here on the right. that is everyone that's involved with the Ascend team here at the college. You can set it up to where they'll only see their assigned students. You can go in real time, and you know, life happens. I was sharing this on a DOL webinar yesterday. Um, what is really super helpful for us in the day-to-day aspects of running these programs is being able to assign staff. And you'll see in more detail here in a bit when I open one of the participant files, but um, stuff happens, especially this time of year. It's really busy with open registration events, staff being out for family vacations, unexpected illnesses. So it's hugely beneficial for us to be able to log into a platform like this and see in real time what was our most recent communication with this student, what service were we maybe like in the middle of providing them, but we need to follow up on. All of that can be done through AGS. So once you log in, there are a couple of flags over here, a couple of links over on the left. The top one is create participant. Really one of my favorite aspects of AGS is that I don't think we've ever used the create participant. It's there if we need it, but what's really helpful for us is the self-registration up here at the top, which I'll cover in more detail here shortly. But that self-registration is so invaluable. On that same DOL webinar yesterday, I was sharing some fellow work grantees are really struggling to capture all of those just small details of race, ethnicity, gender, and how to take that type of demographic, those characteristics, and code those to be DOL WIPS compliant. The great thing with AGS is no one has to do that. It's all built into the system. The student completes the self-registration form, and it's, you'll see shortly, very straightforward. They just see form fields. They answer the question of, what their gender is, what their race and ethnicity is. There's some questions depending on your funder for income level information or other leveraged state or federal assistance programs. The end user just answers all of those as basic questions, and AGS is so sophisticated that on the back end, it codes all of those to be in those WIPS compliant, codes, those digits, so that whenever it's time to generate your quarterly performance report, you generate the CSV file, you upload it, no worries. So our use case is students complete the self-registration form. That will bring them over here to this non-reviewed participant screen. We have an internal project coordinator who goes in and reviews these regularly. This is all based on one of our actual grant projects, the work grant, with some fake profiles filled in. So she's not that behind on her work, I promise. But so she comes in, and for our use case, she will open each of these up. I'll open one just so you can see. This is essentially all of that self-filled in user information, participant information, student information, whatever terminology fits your use case. That all populates to these fields. She goes in and she verifies, okay, the student says this is their date of birth. Does that match what we have in the college's banner system? They say that they have a disability. Should we maybe encourage them to reach out to our accessibility office? They are a veteran. Should we encourage them to connect with our director of Veterans Affairs? Just to kind of see what information they've provided. So again, not just making sure that we're compliant with our DOL reporting requirements, but really leveraging this information to best meet the needs of our students. She can take this information and If it says they're a low income student, we have a temporary assistance for needy families rep on campus. Anything that they may disclose in here that is needed for reporting, but we can use and link them with either some internal resources or external resources. So it's great to not only use it and be compliant with your reporting, but to really serve whoever your participants may be. So all of this, again, this is what it looks like when your students or participants fill this information out, just very straightforward form fields. And AGS is so sophisticated that it doesn't flag, the county here as peers. It flags it to the appropriate coding. Same thing for any of their additional information as far as what supplemental services that they may be receiving. All of that just gets coded so that you're compliant. You don't have to worry about it. Once our project coordinator flags the student, has verified all the information that she needs, she'll come in here, she will switch them to reviewed, and she will assign them a staff member. So for our use case, she will assign who their specific academic advisor will be. Your use case may look a little different, but it's really, really convenient to be able to just see data specific to a certain team member. Once they get moved over into your reviewed, you get this lovely sort of overview of all of your participants. You can see who they're assigned to, what date they signed up for your program. This is also customizable. We've reached out to AGS to have it feature the college ID number. It's not something that is needed for DOL reporting, but it saved us a lot of time. We didn't have to jump over into Banner and see, do a manual lookup for the student and make sure that we were looking at the right participant in AGS. We were able to add that as part of that self-registration, so the student fills it in as they're signing up for the program. So I think that is also a huge, huge selling point for AGS. I can't stress enough. Yes, it will ensure that you're compliant with your reporting requirements, but it is very customizable to what you need. If there is something like, even something as simple as having that college ID there, really cut down on some manual processing and lookup time for our staff. So if there's something that you think may be beneficial information for you and your team that isn't necessarily needed for your funders or your reporting requirements, very, very responsive team, very helpful team, and they'll make sure that that gets added to you, added for you rather. So I will just jump in. If for some reason you would need to edit something for one of your participants, you would just click this blue edit record button. It opens up that same participant profile, and maybe the student had some sort of typo in their last name, or a lot of our students aren't familiar if they're new to college. They may get close to their actual college ID number, but it's off by a number or something. So you can go back in and change that. You can change as staff turnover happens. You can change who they're assigned to. Save all of that, and then when you're ready, you can click this green folder icon, and this will open up really where all of the pertinent information lives for your participants. So participant profile, that same bit of, I just refer to it as demographic information. I think DOL refers to it as characteristic information. You can click that, open it, edit it. Here is where really our primary use is for the Ascend team. We add their work grant enrollment, date of program entry. Eventually, we will go in as students graduate and transfer out into the workforce, and we'll add a date of program exit. Trying to remember what else is in here. So a lot of that supplemental service information is flagged in this folder. Ultimately, what DOL is looking at is this post-exit follow-up. They want to see how did the funding that they've offered us impact the students' ability to transition into the workforce, into high-quality, sustainable employment. So we actually just had our first round of graduates, and we were able to feature this information on our most recent round of reporting. A big focus on that DOL webinar yesterday was grantees that are really struggling with how this gets coded, because those pro elements are so specific. If it's not, the exact format, then you can't upload your quarterly performance report. So for us, again, like, it's helpful for us to be familiar with those pro elements and what they should look like. But what's really helpful is how AGS allows us to handle that information. I don't have to look up employed in first quarter means that I need to put a 9 here or a 6 here. I can just put that the student is now graduated, their employment information, where they are employed, their wage, if they're comfortable sharing that with us. DOL loves to see that information, and it all just lives within each participant profile. So all in one spot. We don't have, at one point we were juggling like 6 or 7 Excel spreadsheets across the team and across our projects. Now we just log into AGS to whichever grant application, and everything lives within the system for our participants and our projects. So we'll jump back over, open this back up. So for us, we will list the training program. If you're a higher ed person like myself, the training program is just the student's academic major. And then within that folder, it's kind of like a subfolder of individual training. So the way that we use that is we will put each semester that the student is enrolled here at the college. So you can see, kind of expand this out here a bit, our spring 2024 semester, the start date, the end date, if the student completed that semester, and what their major was for that semester. So it allows us, again, something like spring 2024 is not going to generate on a WIPS report, but it's hugely helpful for us and higher ed, with all of our higher ed lingo, to be able to look and see, this start date, what would that term have been? Let me open this up really quick. So this is what it looks like as we go in and add that information. We're actually in the middle of doing this as our fall semester kicks off next month. We're going ahead as students register. We're putting in the fall semester, and we can go ahead and put in a start date if for some reason the student doesn't continue, they transfer, they withdraw. We can go in and remove that on the back end, but for us it's better to have it up front than have to track it down after the fact. At the end of the semester, we'll put their the last date that they were actively in class and whether they completed the semester or if they withdrew. And then for our grants, the work grant, we're allowed to extend these additional support services to certain majors. So those are tied to some DOL related ONET codes, because again, they're looking for those employment outcomes. We were able to work with AGS and tie, here's the majors that DOL says we can offer these services to. What are those ONET codes? We were able to have those populated in for us. So again, saving a bunch of time. We don't have to go and manually look up, what's the ONET code for someone in advanced manufacturing. It's just in the system for us, and we can select whichever one applies to that specific major. DOL's happy. They see it on our quarterly report when it's time. And we're happy that we don't have to keep track of however many ONET codes we're up to at this point. Outside of the training information, I mentioned that we had some graduates, our first round of graduates. So we can go into these credentials and these measurable skills gains. There's a lot of flexibility depending on who you're funded by as to what they want to see in these fields. For us, it is the student's certificate, if they earned a certificate, their associate's degree, or for our nursing students, they want to see the NCLEX passage. So we can add all of that information here into credentials or measurable skills gains. It is up here in your training program folder. Over here on the left, you can see a button to enter a new training. So again, for us, that's where we go and we add those individual semesters worth of information. And just underneath that is where you'll find the credential. So you can select whether it was a certificate or an associate's degree in our case, any one of these applicable fields, and the date that the student earned that. So for our Strengthening Community Colleges grant, we actually will enter 2 credentials per participant. We'll enter their associate's degree, but then we'll also enter this occupational licensure or certification. The great thing with AGS is all of this can be customizable. This is just how we use it and the options that we have for our programs. If yours look a little bit different, you can reach out to AGS and let them know, here's what the team needs to see in this drop down. They'll make sure that it's in there for you. I think that is it for that piece. Let me jump back over to yeah, so actually I'm so used to what our other grants look like. So down here under services, this is where any of those additional wraparound services that we provide our students. So your use case may look a little bit different, but this is where our academic advising appointments go. This is where our tuition assistance, if we use grant funding to purchase textbooks for students, if it's just us referring a student to an internal or external resource outside of the grant programs, all of that gets entered here. You can track in real time per participant how much funding has been spent. So everything again is just all in one place. You don't have to track it in Teams or Excel or God forbid, I heard a lady yesterday say she's tracking everything in Access and immediately sent her some contact information for AGS to try to alleviate that burden for her. So all of these are tied to this create new over here on the left. So you can create a new program, those measurable skills gains, or as we're looking at services here, you'll select what grant the student is being funded under, the date that you started the service. Typically, it's going to be same start and end date. Start date is required because DOL requires a date of, I think they word it as date of most recent individualized support service. End date is optional, but if you want to be really thorough, you can add one. And then this list of services. So again, for us, it's some career services, some a referral perhaps to counseling or accessibility, their advising, if we bought their textbooks. And again, all of this can be customized to what you need it to say. DOL doesn't really care about the specifics in terms of the language that's used. They're primarily looking to see that you're providing these services to your participants and what date they most recently received those services. So hugely helpful for us as we manage projects and we work with our students to have this information. And then the great benefit is that DOL gets to see the information that they want. If there's a cost associated with it, something like advising, there isn't going to be a cost related to that service. But if we help cover part of a student's tuition or purchase their textbooks, we can put a cost for that service here, and it will tie back over to this services cost here. And you'll see when we jump over to some of the reporting capabilities, you can generate a report of all support services that you have provided. It's all right there in real time for your grant project. You don't have to work with your, Access Excel, your external financial affairs office, or however you may be set up. You can pull it up in real time for your entire project. You can filter it down to specific students, but it's all just right there. Employment, as our students graduate, we will go over here. Again, really stressing that DOL wants to see those employment outcomes. We can click over here to create new employment. We have our employer partners that are listed here. If at any point, we actually just had this the other day, Parkline that is highlighted here, they are a brand new employer. They are going to start working with the college in fall. So I was able to reach out to John and Susan and say, hey, could you please go and add this employer into our drop down? As an admin, you can also go in, if you're comfortable with it, you can go in and add that yourself. There's a way to go in and update all of the employer information up in your admin access. You can do that with your ONET code. You can do that with your staffing. You can do that with the services that you offer. There's a really good combination of, if you're comfortable with it, you can use your admin credentials and customize it. If you're a little unsure, maybe you want a little additional support, you can reach out to the AGS team. They're always super responsive, and they'll go in and make any of those adjustments that you need. But for us, we'll select their employer, the date that they started, their related occupational code, job title. Some of the students are comfortable giving us a wage, some understandably aren't. It's not required for DOL reporting, but if you have it, they really like to see it. So all of that can just go here.
Hey, Cody.
Yes.
For the sake of time, there's some questions about reports. Can we take a quick look at some, at least the WIPS report, or some other things you wanted to show off today?
Yeah, absolutely. Jump over here to our reports. So everything that you put in your participant management section, all of that individual participant services, their demographic information, everything that you may now be tracking through Excel or Access or whatever system you may be using. You can generate a variety of reports. One you see is your WIPS file. So whenever you go to submit your quarterly performance report, you would just click this button, and let me share my other screen here. So you click generate your WIPS report, and it opens and looks like this. I didn't have to go in and manually code all of these in for all of our participants. Again, the system is sophisticated enough that all of that information that we've entered throughout the student's time with us here at the college gets generated to this report. So it's time to do quarterly reporting. I come, it will ask you for your current reporting quarter. There are some built-in, hugely helpful error checks. So instead of getting to the WIPS, logging into WIPS and you're getting ready to submit your reporting, there's an error. What's causing the error? You can alleviate all of that on the front end. there's an option to select to where it will generate that error report for you. You can fix it, and then when it's time to submit to DOL, you don't have to wait around. And anyone that's gone through that process knows that you're waiting around for your email, you're sort of getting nervous of, were there any errors? Am I good to go? Can I actually submit? All of that's alleviated through AGS. Actually, the entire time that we've been using AGS, because it is set up so well and so thoroughly, we've only had one error report when we do the test, and that was just tied to like a really minor issue. I think it was something related to the employment, how something was coded in there. I reached out to Susan and John, sent them a screenshot of what I was seeing, and the very next morning the issue was resolved, was able to submit the WIPS report well ahead of schedule without any issue. So again, you don't need to know a lot of the ones that I was hearing yesterday, or some of these that are sort of later in your grant life cycle or your participant duration with your program. Those occupational codes, those the type of training, is it a 1 or a 6 or a 9, or all of these, my eyes sort of crossed looking at all of the different numbers. And at one
I
point,
started to glaze over after all those ones and zeros and nines.
yeah, and at one point, like I said, we were going through our college's banner software and cross-referencing that with our DOL checklist, their report template, to see, hey, this person lives in this county. What is that FIPS code? If you have been involved with reporting for FIPS codes, you have to go out and like individually search for the county. We were taking a lot of time to just put in to Google county name, FIPS code, and then we would have to match it up. Literally every aspect of your WIPS report just pulls from that straightforward, easy to follow system that we were just looking at. So when it's time to do reporting, you don't have to manually take that information and correlate it to a specific digit and a specific format. Let me jump back over into AGS.
Cody, for the sake of time, I want to make sure we're sensitive to everybody's schedules. If there's more you want to show here or back to the presentation, whatever works best for what you wanted to show today.
Yeah, just really quickly, I mentioned we use AGS a lot, not just for our DOL reporting. We use it a lot just for performance management, to share information with the college leadership team, our employer partners. So over here in queries, we can generate a report in real time, all of our participant profiles, so we can see how many participants we have, any case notes, any employer activity. The ones that we use most frequently are the service data and the training data. So we can see, here's how many trainings that a student has enrolled in and completed. Or most often it's the service data, so we can see, here's how much funding we've spent. And as a project manager, it helps me tremendously to have that information available anytime I need it. I can go out there and pull it and see, so I'm not having to track all of that through some other software. Literally every aspect of the Ascend program is managed through AGS. Jump back over to our presentation. Okay, where did we leave off at? I think that's it for the presentation. A lot of folks ask about the procurement process. Unfortunately, if you are familiar with this space, there's not a really straightforward one-size-fits-all answer. Every state is different, every institution is different, so I can only speak to how we went through the procurement process. I met with Susan, I got a demo, immediately wanted to purchase it and start implementing it. And she provided us a quote for our use case because we are working across a couple of different grants with different workspaces. It was a individualized quote for us. I took that to our chief financial officer, and we just went through all of our typical requesting approval from the state auditor's office because they want to be involved with everything that the college does, and completed completed our requisition form, completed our grant billing to the appropriate grant. That was all sent off to AGS, and I would say probably within a week we had the system up and running, and we were receiving our onboarding and some really great training specific to our use case. So myself and the project coordinator I mentioned received training specific to our admin access. And then separately from that, our advisors were able to get training for how they'll use the system. So as I shared in that DOL webinar that I mentioned earlier, I really cannot stress this enough. If you are working through a number of different Excel spreadsheets and teams and trying to track down what was the most recent communication I had with this student, my coworker was working with this participant and now they need to be out on sick leave. I have no idea what was going on with the student. Really any element of your project, if you're tracking that through a number of different systems or God forbid no system, you absolutely need AGS. It has made such a difference in how we operate. It has freed up a ton of our time that was being spent, just making sure that stuff is coded a specific way so that we're able to be more frequent and intentional with our participants. And ultimately, by alleviating that burden from us and allowing us to provide those intensive wraparound supports, we're seeing not only compliance with our grant reporting, but successes with the programs, increased retention rates, increased employment rates. And I genuinely don't know if that would be the case if we were still spending so much of our time just focused on grant reporting instead of our student services. And then I think Susan and John, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Cody. I know we're over a little bit on time, so I want to be cognizant of everyone's schedule. Like Susan mentioned, the presentations of these last couple of slides include some information about AGS as a company and about AGS Prime, the system itself. Though the presentation is available in your settings and will also be emailed to you, as well as the video recording of this webinar. Cody, if you wouldn't mind, can you jump down to the last slide for our contact information so folks have that available? And then if there's any Q&A that folks have, if there's any specific questions that you want answered, I know we're a little bit over time here, but we're happy to stick around and answer some questions, or absolutely feel free to email any of us. That would be great, and we can get those questions answered. Or if you want to take a deeper dive and dive into any number of these tools, we can do that one-on-one with you and your teams as well. So here's our contact information.